Welcome to eveRIAthing. Today we have three amazing women who are sharing the message of mental health through an incredible medium, comedy. Let's meet the fantastic producers of the anxiety show, Phillips, Frida Hallgren, and Elisha Tatiana. Welcome to eveRIAthing. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. By the way, I'd like to thank Lisa, my partner. Thank you for making this possible.
Yes.
You rock. And we miss you. We miss you. Come to Canada soon. Okay, so my first question probably is something you expect, right? How did you start the anxiety show?
Yeah, so the anxiety show started, I had the germ of the idea in 2016. I had been touring the Vancouver or the Fringe circuit across Canada as a solo performer, storyteller, and was given this platform across Canada, which was basically a bare stage for an hour to talk about whatever I wanted. And so I came up with a show called Not Enough, which was about doing this Vipassana meditation retreat where I was alone with my mind demons for 10 days. And the thing about Vipassana is that it's more intense than your regular silent meditation. It's not just no speaking, it's also no talking, no gesturing, no writing, no communicating, no eye contact. So you're completely alone with your mind demons. And I created this show that was really scary process-wise because it meant taking my insides and putting on a platform for my outsides. But the reception was so powerful and so positive from the show, and it continues to be powerful and positive. Like, I continue to do the show for mental health organizations and in schools and colleges and whatnot. So the message was really powerful, and for me it was a really fascinating experience of taking these insides and putting them outsides and having people go, oh, me too, that happens to me, in a theatrical comedic slant. So when I came back after that tour at the end of 2016, I realized that there was nothing like that existed in Vancouver here. Like, there's this beautiful Fringe circuit that you can tour if you have the means to be able to do and write a show and take it out. But in terms of being able to workshop stuff in the city that I live in, Vancouver, there was no real platform there's storytelling shows, to be sure, but there's no real comedic shows that have this like regular comedic shows that carry this depth and weight from lived experience. And I had also seen, there were two shows in Vancouver that were also an influence to me. One is called Rape is Real and Everywhere, which is a show that actually, the anxiety show is a season coming up, and we're doing a co-production with them in the spring, which I'm really excited about. But it was a comedy show by survivors around sexual assault, which our dear friend Emma Cooper, that is her brainchild. But I saw that, and that's a very lived-through experience comedy show. And then there was another show at the time called The Tragedy Show, which also took these real experiences and made them into comedy. So I saw that the anxiety, particularly since Not Enough was about discovering I had anxiety, and that was very hot on my brain at the time. And so anxiety felt like that was my window into making comedy. That was where I could support other creatives. So I basically wanted to create a platform for other creatives, comedians in particular, to be able to go into some real stuff and put a comedic slant on it, but not have it just be like, and then the guy got up and fell down again, you know, which is probably the worst comedy act that I hope nobody that is not a comedy act that I've seen. We have much better comics in this town.
I'm sure, because we're going to watch your show. Oh my gosh. Well, I know that was impromptu, I'm thinking, right? That you did. How about the audience? Were you able to actually get a captive audience during your first?
Yeah, well, it was really fascinating because I didn't know how it was going to be received, and I just was going to do a one-off and then see. I had the idea of making it a regular show, but I had no idea if it was going to fly or not. And I put the call out for the first show. It was booked for January of 2017. I put the call out around December. And that show got more traction than anything I've ever done. Like, it got picked up, it got huge. Yeah, so it was a fat shame, like an anti-fat shaming show, fat shaming. And because every episode features a different mental health trigger that, so there's a different theme every time. And so, that show, it sold out days in advance, which is unheard of for Vancouver audiences for January comedy shows. It's never been before. So that felt to me like, oh, we've got something here.
Yeah. And there's a need for it. Like, probably people were just waiting for someone to go out there and talk about anxiety in it. Do you say it's in a light manner because it's comedy, or is it still a heavy comedy? Is there even such a thing?
Well, yes, there is such a thing. There absolutely is such a thing, and it depends on the people that we book, and we're quite selective about who we book, and but also not, because there's an open mic element to the show as well. That was very important to me from the beginning. To be able to say our stories matter, but your story matters too. And I know for me, if I had never been given a safe opportunity to do an open mic for stand-up comedy, I never would have pursued it, because it terrified me as a medium. And I, grew up with like good old 90s white men comedy going, the problem with women, just nag, nag, nag. And it was like, well, I can't top that, I guess. I guess I'm just a nagging woman, and that's my comedy. So thankfully, the climate of comedy has shifted enormously, particularly in the past 10 years, even in the past 5. The spice of the comedy really varies depending on the person doing the comedy, on their lens. There's a lot of dark comedians, and there's some light comedians, and the only rule for the anxiety show that I have is that the stories or bits that they do come from a place of first-hand experience. So it doesn't have to be a true story, because I do have sketches and I do have music, and sometimes they're written from a character's perspective. So it can be fictional, but it's crucial to us that the content comes from a punch-up comedy place, as opposed to a bully punch-down place. Because from experience,
your goal is bottom line is to still inspire your audience, right? Because that's.
And the audience is really responsive to it too. Like every show, there's always people being like, "Oh, this was so amazing, and it was so special," and it is a different kind of atmosphere than other stand-up. It is like, just because it's heavy subjects and because it's hard personal experience, it gets a lot more real than like like airplane food's bad. Like it's not that kind. Like it gets. To me, it gets funnier when it's actually real heavy stuff, and a lot of the audience is seeing that too. And it is, it's not the same pressure of like set up punchline. Like it is like audience is listening to you, and they're there participating as well. So it's a very togetherness experience. Like it is like the audience feels part of the show as well, more than someone's just looking at something else.
And it attracts a really special audience too. Like I would say, maybe I'm biased, but we have the best audience in Vancouver. We really do. They're diehard. They come to every show. They bring people. They do the open mic. We've even booked there are some people who've been coming since day one. Juno Mack, shout out to Juno for one of them, who comes to every show. We booked her for a couple of shows, and it's just cool.
Well, that's amazing. Do you have an age limit? Like, how young can a person be in the audience?
Well, I don't know if the Kino is all ages.
Yeah, it's all ages.
It's all ages?
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good, because we have a lot of young people who are struggling, right? But they can't speak, because some of them are bullied if they try to speak, right? But this is good to see that there are adults, young adults, and to see people in the audience who are just like them and are going through the same experience.
Exactly.
Now, do you interview or do you research whoever wants to do a show? Not the ones who do the open mic, but who are actually participating. Do they go for auditions or something like that?
Well, we don't audition, but this year is actually really exciting because we're expanding this year. So, going back to the earlier question, when I created the show, a vision that I had for it originally was I wanted it to be regular, but I also, because I'm a touring artist, I wanted to have the show that I could bring to cities that I go, where I could host it and book comics and meet other like-minded comedians and give them a platform to share if their city doesn't necessarily have a platform like this, for them to delve into new content. So that, but then I also knew that in order to expand it needed to have a team, because when we started, the show was just me. Which, as an anxiety-riddled individual doing a show that brings most anxiety up, and then like totally
marketing,
producing, marketing, audience management, all the whole thing was just to hit a point of like, it's fascinating. I was just saying to these ladies, they know this. I was about to quit. Like I was about to quit the show because that's one thing too when you're just stuck in your head of like. Audience members can tell you how much they like it till they're blue in the face, but if my brain has made a decision that I'm like stressed out and I'm freaked out about the show and nobody likes it, then it's like strangers can tell me till they're blue in the face, you know, but I won't hear them. However, Frida has been with the show since day one.
Yeah.
She was doing doors since day one, and she's come to pretty much every single show. I think it's only like one or two that you haven't been at.
No, I think I've been to all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just really special, knowing that Frida was going to do door for me. Was just like, okay, I've got someone who approves the show and stuff. And then when I was saying that I was looking at stopping the show, Frida was like,
you only need one person to say no.
Yeah, and so it was just this thing of like, I was like, oh, well, it's just too much. Frida was like, well, I'll help you. And it was like, I had just never considered that like anybody would want to help with the show, that it was.
That you didn't have to do it.
That I had to do it on my own.
Because sometimes, especially if you have anxiety, you hesitate to ask.
Absolutely. It's
you're
so
scared of
isolating.
being
It's
rejected.
so isolating.
I know.
Yeah, so Frida came on, and so we were talking about doing that, and then Elisha came
Pretty recently, like just before the summer this year.
Okay.
And, you know, I'd been doing comedy for many years, and then I had actually, because of a trauma in my life and because of my own mental health at the time, I had stopped doing comedy for a couple of years. And then I kept hearing about the anxiety show, and I'd see Megan on Facebook, and I was really drawn to the idea of it. And I've known Frida for years, just through the comedy community, and just two amazing women, right? So I had been really hesitant to go back into comedy and just to sort of re-enter that community. But I thought, okay, if I'm going to, this to me seems like a really safe, supportive place to do it. And so I reached out to Megan and asked if I could. I sent in a pitch for what I wanted to do, and it was the perfectionism show was the one that and I just had the most amazing experience. And again, the audience was so incredibly supportive, and just the whole feeling of the show. And for women in comedy, I have experienced in Vancouver a lot of support, but it's not always easy for women in comedy. Like it's certain challenges that we have, and I just did not feel that at all at this show. I just felt embraced, and it's kind of a really nurturing environment, and I thought, okay, this is somewhere I want to be. I'd like to be part of this. So I just said, if you need any help, I would love to help and be part of it. So
Look at the
now
three of
I'm
you.
thrilled to be
It was
together,
so cool.
tight.
It was such divine intervention.
Yes.
Yeah, and so to feel like now we have this pillar of foundation to expand it was just this, it was honestly, it felt kind of like Power Rangers, like, unite!
Oh my gosh,
You
my
know?
girls love Power Rangers. I think it's my eldest.
We're like, by the power of Grayskull! You know, I'm just mixing all the cartoons together.
Women power too.
Well,
and I
we
think
have
it's a
such
healing
dynamic.
process,
We
right?
just gelled, and we have this
Yeah.
great supportive dynamic, and it's like it was meant to be. That's how I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you share something similar, that's what really draws you together, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even know the person sitting beside you is actually going through exactly what you're going.
Yeah.
But then until someone starts talking, you wouldn't know. And then there you go. You have this program running. And so you do the show too. Like you also do comedy.
Yeah, I've been performing as well, so
That is
I do that regularly too. Yeah.
That is amazing.
We co-host as well.
Yeah.
We co-host the
That's
show
lovely.
together.
And I quickly went through the shows that are upcoming for in Vancouver, right? And I see that every day is the first Sunday of the month. I did my homework. First Sunday of the month.
Very good,
And
Jackie.
this coming Sunday is the first one. And I noticed the topics are different. So your performers should talk when they do their comedy act. It should go around that topic.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've, so as I say, we've expanded. Before it was just kind of like I would have a comedian in mind that I knew and I would ask them to do the show. But now that we've expanded, we've put out a call for pitches. So we're always accepting pitches. If you email theanxietyshow@gmail.com.
There you go.
Yeah, and because we mostly come from the stand-up community, so that's who we know. But then I also am in the fringe community, so there's some theater performers and storytellers there. But it's variety style, which is the one thing that makes it a bit more unique than the other shows that I've referenced. Because it's not just stand-up and not just storytelling. There's also music, we've had poetry, dance. We have dance acts that come on from time to time.
And then improv as well.
Improv, yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's just really special too because it can be a palate cleanser as well to have these refreshing mediums as opposed to just talking about really heavy material one after the other. You know, it can have, which is why we like to vary the toast level, shall we say, from like light to burnt toast, you know?
Exactly, and then
because sometimes it's
variety.
nice to have a light palate cleanser, you know, just to get out of my brain, if anything else.
Feel good, right? It's a feel good.
But then we don't shy away from the dark bits either.
Oh, that's so true. I want to ask you something personal, right? Like, have you ever experienced a time where you are supposed to do a show, but your day's not going well? What do? Does it affect how you're going to run the night? Produce it?
Never. I am a robot.
There you go, robot mode.
So much.
Oh my gosh, I wish.
No, it feels
so
like it's
much.
part of it. Like you have to have a little bit of anxiety for
Well,
every show. But
I had, you girls were at the show. I had the last show we did in the summer, the F summer, I had a breakup that day. Like a really intense breakup with somebody that I was head over heels over, and it was, and I had no idea how I was going to do comedy. Like, and I messaged you.
Breakup and comedy, they don't go together.
But it was fascinating because the audience is so special and the show is so special and these girls are so special. Like everything was so special. It was like I just got there and I think also it helps that it's very clear to me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, you know, I don't know if I'll ever actually get married, but it's like I do feel very married to my not just profession but calling of this particular form of comedy in general. And so to get there was such an affirmation around this audience that was just so loving and supportive and the cool thing about this show, especially with the open mic, is that I've really created a situation where it's not just like we are on stage and you are the audience and we are the winners and you are the, like listen to us, we're the teacher, we know best. It's a dialogue, it's a community. The audience is very much a part. They don't have to be a part of the show. It's not like that clown show that you dread going to where you're like, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. Yeah, like it's always consensual, but it's acknowledging that we're all part of this shared space together. and we all are adding to the energy of this space in this experience that we're all having. It's just some of us are standing on the stage and some of us are just sitting down. That's like the only difference.
Yeah. And we usually have also like little notes for people to write things on. So we'll have like a suggestion like, oh, what's your share an experience regarding this topic, and then collect them and read them out loud too. So there's also the interactive element there.
And you do that at the end of the show?
Just during the show. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, just on a personal level, I wanted to say, even between the three of us, we are always like communicating, whether it's Messenger, and we go through our stuff that is outside of the show, our anxieties or our breakups, and just we communicate about it to each other. We support each other. So I know like when Megan's going through that, and we try to just be there for each other, so that when we get to the show, we all kind of know what's going on in each other's lives, and we're there for each other. And we've had meetings where we have to cancel a meeting because one of us is going through something, and we know that we'll make it up another time, and we'll just take care of each other emotionally, right? Yeah.
Things that are unexpected, like who's expecting that, tomorrow my boyfriend's going to break up with me? You're never ready. It just comes like, bam. How easy was it? Well, breakups, I'm sure a lot of people want to hear about how you probably got over that through the show. Can you say that the show was instrumental in helping you get over?
1,000%.
There you go.
1,000. Even
Like,
that
find
show that I
something.
did, I honestly think I broke through into a new area of comedy, personally, that night. Like, just, because I was, you guys heard, I was on a bit of a rant about, he's a lovely gentleman, but I was very angry.
I bet you the audience was on your side. Yes, everybody wanted to kill him.
Oh yeah.
Yes, down with him, right?
They were, but some of the funniest things I've ever said on stage came out that night. I've had a bunch of comics come up to me after and say like, do that bit you did that night. And I'm like, what did they say?
Do you have a video of that? Oh.
I didn't record it, but I have gone back and done my best to remember. Some of it isn't family friendly to repeat.
Because it's at the moment, like it's
Absolutely.
at the moment, like.
Well, it's very cathartic.
It's so
Just
cathartic.
even that's why I got into comedy in the first place, is
Yes.
how cathartic it is, and how you can work through so much stuff in your comedy, and so much more when it's actually a mental health focus, the topics of the show.
Yeah.
Because the other means is you can scream. You can scream, cover your face with a pillow. You can just scream like no one's there. Or, like throw things. This violent means, right? Sometimes it helps. And there's comedy, which is a release. I think it's
Absolutely.
When you can say things up on stage that you can't say just sitting in a social situation, right?
Yeah,
So you get to release things that maybe wouldn't socially be acceptable in another forum.
And especially when you get the audience cheering you, right? And you have the mic, and yes, it fires you up all the more.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a time where you regretted what you said on stage? Like, oops.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did? What do you do after? Do you go back to the next show?
Time do you have?
The last show, and
Like,
I won't
sorry.
repeat it, but I overshared something I thought at the last show, and then afterwards I had remorse. I was like, oh, should I have said that? But you know what?
It's funny.
Yeah.
But that's what live
Yeah, exactly.
setup is. I
Live.
mean, that's what we're signing up for. But that's why it's so great. And that's one of the things I love about our open mic, to be honest, is because it's such a wild card. Like we've had some people go up there and it's risky. Like open mics are risky, especially in a booked comedy show. And I don't know if there's any other shows that I've ever seen that intersperse open mic with booked.
What you do?
If you've ever seen
No,
that.
I have not heard.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the Kino does have, they have their regular comedy show, and I know the owner of the Kino, Steve, he always has
We love
Like,
Steve.
yeah,
He's
Steve,
our host.
he
He's
always has
Alan.
like a couple of 3-minute openings for open mics on the Kino
okay,
show.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, sometimes there's some duds. And I don't mean that like the people are duds by any means. Sometimes the material just doesn't fly or whatever. But
True.
But you know what? Honestly though, I truly believe, and I experience this again and again, that whatever's said on stage is exactly what the people in the audience need to hear, and vice versa. Because maybe something doesn't land and it's not funny, and the person on stage doesn't, is like, oh, that was, terrible, but it's like there's people in the audience that think like, oh, I'm so glad I heard that.
Yeah, true.
You know, so
There could be someone in the audience that was just waiting for that.
100%,
Right?
100%.
Because it's spontaneous, and you know, it's your vulnerability that you're sharing, and that is very powerful. When people see you as you, you're not trying to be someone else. You're sharing your story. That's courage, to share someone's story, and it's when you're vulnerable. That's when people really relate, because they feel what's going on. Whether you're making them laugh or cry, I'm sure you've got both. You've got both, you know, results. And have you ever had people come to you after the show and say like, oh my gosh, I needed that today.
Yes.
I was waiting for that today. Right. It just fires you up.